Yeah, I appreciate you talking to you today about the state of the city of Clive. You've all got handouts of the PowerPoints there, so you can follow along. Some of the details are a little bit hard to see on the screen, so we want to make sure that you could do that. It's very nice to be in this space. This is the first time I've been in this space and not really salivated about having a steak. Jim tells me that they did a great job in gutting, and I don't smell steak. So congratulations on being able to get to that point soon. So what I wanted to focus on initially is where we are as a city. And I wanted to start with our citizen satisfaction survey that will give you some idea of how citizens have rated the city of Clive. And so if you take a look at that first handout, you can see on the right-hand side there the areas that Clive citizens think are most important and which they rate the highest. And so you can see safety, parks and rec, the natural environment that we have here in Clive, and the economy are all things, and then utilities also fit in the area. So we do this citizen satisfaction survey so that we can gauge what our citizens think about what we are doing, and so that we have a pathway forward and know areas where we need to improve. Now, on the next slide, just take a look at that on the quality as far as how we are rated. If you take a look at Clive as a place to live, we're at 97%. We're higher than the benchmark from hundreds of other cities against which we're evaluated. Quality of life, again, we're at 95% there. And then overall economic health, 92%. So we're doing very good there as far as those ratings. Now, if you take a look at the next one, on that page, you see where we are as far as overall customer service for city employees, public information services, informing residents about issues, treating residents fairly, and treating residents with respect. And you see on this particular list of the hundreds of cities that are surveyed, we rank in the top 10, so we do quite well there. And then if we look at the sentiment of our citizenry as far as over time, you can see again where we rank in the top there as far as the value, the direction the Clive is taking, the job the government does, confidence in government, acting in the best interest, and so forth. So again, our citizens are give us a lot of reinforcement on the job that we're doing. Now, to ensure that we continue to meet those standards, each year, each summer, the City Council has a strategic planning event where we spend dozens of hours planning and determining what our goals should be for the upcoming year. The staff's involved with that, and the council is as well. And so the four key goals that we've got going forward for this next year are to ensure that Clive remains a great place to live with safe, beautiful neighborhoods, continues to be a premier location for families. And the second one is to continue our tradition of strong financial stewardship and delivering highly valued services. And then we want to build and maintain a resilient facilities and infrastructure. And finally, to be stewards of our distinctive green belt. So if we look at those four goals, then we identified within that our specific priorities going forward for this next year. So stream restoration, Lannan Park redevelopment, and tied into that is the Harbach Center. If you're aware that our former public safety building, we've turned into a center for the neighborhood that has a satellite library, various programming, And we're very proud of what's available there. And so that ties in with what we're looking at doing in Linear Park. We've got our Greenbelt Landing that we're fundraising for now, and we're almost nearing completion. We're going to improve city communications by expanding that, by adding a position that will focus on that. A big thing coming forward will be the I-3580 interchange project, and we're working with the DOT on that. We're going to continue the flood-prone property buyout program, so that those areas that are prone to flooding, we'll get those off the tax rolls and provide a space that'll be an amenity to the community. Indian Hills Woods, we're making improvements there. We're reinvesting in the park. We've done a lot for employee recruitment, retention, and recognition. We've got an 86th Street neighborhood plan, and we're working to implement that with recommendations from the Economic Vitality Committee. And we're working on changes in the stormwater and irrigation rate structure. The next thing that we have up, we want to show just a brief video on the Greenbelt Landing. So we're going to rely on Pete's IT skills, and hopefully we'll be successful here in watching a video. If not, you'll hear me drone on.
The Clive Greenbelt. This place is about us and thriving together. It's about good stewardship and caring for our natural spaces. It's where we come together to celebrate and build community. The Clive Greenbelt is loved by Clive residents and visitors. It connects beautiful neighborhoods, parks, and places to have fun. We've been improving the Greenbelt for decades, and now it's time to write the next chapter in its story. Greenbelt Landing is the 14-acre park east of Northwest 114th Street, next to Walnut Creek and the Greenbelt. It includes the Clive Aquatic Center, community building, and Clive Festival grounds. For the past year, the city and its partners have been planning for improvements to the area, including a wetland boardwalk, permanent festival stage, and community building renovations. We've secured over $7 million already, and now we need your help to make the project a reality. If the Clive Greenbelt is a place you and your family love, we hope you'll make a generous contribution. To make a 100% tax-deductible gift and learn more about Greenbelt Landing, scan the QR code or visit cityofclive.com.
Richard, do you want to make an appeal at this point? How close are we to meeting our fundraising goal?
So of the $10.6 million, we're over $9 million now. So since that video was done, so we're getting a lot closer. We're kind of in the final home stretch here, and if everything goes well, we're hoping to start construction here probably towards the end of the year, November 1st. So any help, any ideas, anything?
You got applause. That's pretty good. All right. So we're going to pick back up, and we're going to move into our capital improvement plan, so you can get some idea of where a lot of the tax dollars are going to be going. So if you take a look at the first item there, we've got over $107 million in our plan devoted to streets, parks, water, sewer, stormwater, just over the next 5 years. Then we've also taken advantage of the passage of the local option sales services tax law to keep our debt service rate at the same level that it has been. That's $1.48 per $1,000 of valuation. And so thanks to laws, we spent multi-million dollars on a new public safety building, and we're using that to pay that off, so we didn't have to raise taxes. Now, we've also got some strategic investments. We're spending over $8 million per year on transportation, and $2.75 million of that for pavement rehabilitation. Streets aren't holding up as long as they used to be, so we're having to spend a lot of money bringing them up to our standards. So a lot of money is being diverted there. We're also going to be focusing on redevelopment of many of our parks. I mentioned Land Park and Indian Hills Woods, Rio Valley Park. We're going to reinvest and redevelop in those. And then our newest park is Circina Park. And so that's going to begin construction very soon. We've also got various improvements planned for the Greenbelt. We talked about the Greenbelt Landing. We're also going to work on Porter Shelter, make that new, Campbell Park, and then the bridge in Campbell Park as well. We're also in the newer portions of Clive. We've got work going on Alice's Road, Douglas Avenue, Northwest Neighborhood Park, and we're extending Greenbelt Trail out through there. And as I mentioned, we're spending a lot on flood mitigation with investments, voluntary buyouts, and so forth. Let's talk about, and again, feel free to interrupt with questions anytime if you've got them. Any questions? We'll pause for a moment. Any questions so far? You're much like my students. You know, so, should program being a little more interactive program here. But anyway, for the budget itself, we're holding our property tax rate at the same level that it has been at $10.14. And we're maintaining cash reserve. We're targeting 25% cash balance so that if there are impacts on us from the state legislature, from the housing market, the economic impact that might be having, we're able to weather those storms thanks to our fiscal conservative approach. So for the 8th straight year, the tax rate is going to be the same, $10.14. And I would pause here. Christy, I thought you were supposed to stand up and applaud when we talked about the same tax rate. Thank you. Next year, I think I'll have you standing and sitting here so you can stand up when we talk about the tax rate, although we may not be able to maintain it for another year. So as far as those taxes go, our revenues budgeted to decrease by about 1.8% over the prior year. And so our budget, as we look at the FY24 budget, it is about $22.7 million. So that's what the city plans to as far as have revenue coming in. On the expenditure side, it's going to decrease by about 2.8% compared to the prior year. And then our expenditures are planned to be $23.3 million. Now, we budget conservatively, so you shouldn't be concerned about the gap that you see between the revenues and the expenses. We seldom spend 100% of what we're budgeted. We're very conservative, and we have, as we talked about, we have a cash balance so that we can weather any crisis and be able to take care of any variations that occur. So by the end of the year, we'll finish with a balanced budget based on our projections. Now, taking into account, how did we end up with a gap here? Some of you have been following what's happening in the legislature, the impact of some of that on us, in particular with one aspect was over $400,000 someone made an adjustment in the property tax collecting. So that's an impact for us as well. Any questions on that as far as those revenue and expense items? Okay. So what does this mean for the Clive taxpayer? Again, we are going to focus on continuing to deliver those high quality services despite the economic pressures that we feel from fuel, concrete, everything else. When we put a project out to bid, it's coming in much higher than in the past. And to put it in terms that may be easier to understand, if you've got a typical Clive house, a little over 300,000, you'll be paying just under $3,000 in property taxes. It's just a 1.7% increase, so a $50 increase over what you might have paid last year. For a business that's valued at about $1 million, it's about $13,000. It's a 1.4% increase, or $187 over the prior year. And if you look at where we stand, as far as our tax rate, we're one of the lowest in the metro. That is, Urbandale is a little bit lower, but that doesn't include their sewer levy. So if that were included, it would be higher. So, and then you've got Ankeny, which is the lowest. So we compare very favorably with our metro communities, being able to keep the tax rate low and provide a very, very high level of service. And you'll see a further breakdown there on the chart on the next page, showing that house valued at $318,000. Shows you exactly how it's broken down in property, franchise fee, utility fee, and so forth. And then if you had a business, you can step down and see exactly on $1 million business what the increase is there. And keep in mind, when you get your property tax bill, be sure to flip it over on the back and note that Clive's portion of that is only about 30%. Only about 30%. So when you get a property tax bill, keep in mind that other entities are taking the largest share. Clive only takes about 30%. And if you look at where we are water rate wise, you'll see where we are on the residential and commercial. On the lower end on residential, kind of in the middle on commercial. And then for sewer, again, on the lower end of cost, both in residential and in commercial. One thing that I mentioned last week that I wanted to emphasize again today is Clive's commitment to civility. At each council meeting, we indicate that we're committed to the 6 pillars of character. And we expect all of our meetings to, and those who attend our meetings, to conform to those and embrace those pillars of character. As I mentioned last week, that's not the case throughout the metro. And so we're embarking on a project before the next election in November, which will include city council, mayors, and school board, to make sure that everyone in the metro understands the importance of these pillars of character in being able to have important dialogue with our colleagues. And we think it's very important to do that in advance of the election, so that we don't have what we've seen in some past elections with personal attacks on individuals who are running. It's possible to run a good, clean campaign advocating for your position without denigrating someone else. And so in Clive, we're very committed to that. We want to take that to the rest of the metro. And so we're working with the Iowa League of Cities, with character, with the partnership, to have a program so that any candidate for elected office before November can attend a workshop to understand how important civility is. So look for something that in the next few months. Again, we're committed to that in Clive. Fortunately, in Clive, we've been very lucky to have people that believe and support these, and we want to carry that to the rest of the metro. So our final slide, we want to indicate some of the things that you can do to help improve climate as a community. Chamber of Commerce, Christie would welcome you recruiting any new members, anyone else that wants to join, so consider doing that. We're always looking for good people on our boards, commissions, and task force and five. Also, we need volunteers when we're cleaning up the trails, and we've got the spring trash bash Thursday the 20th from noon to 3:30. Richard, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, if you're interested in getting a team together, you can just go to the city's website, and we have it under the Parks and Rec on volunteers. So you get a team together, and sign up, and we'll have a lot of fun that day.
And what's the weather going to be like on the 20th?
Perfect, 75 and sunny.
Thank you. We'll look into that, Richard. Won't be snowing. Also, and one of Pete's favorite items here, pothole. So if you spot a pothole, let us know. We want to get it patched as soon as we can. Weather like this isn't very helpful, but we need your help to know where those potholes are. And unfortunately for Pete, during several cycles of this, he has, well, I started to say adopted the moniker Pothole Pete, but it has been bestowed upon him as Pothole Pete. So, Pothole Pete, did you have anything you'd like to say?
Just that you can email those reports directly to publicworks@cityofclive.com or visit cityofclive.com to figure out who you need to call to report them. And yes, you can always reach out directly to me and I will make sure those potholes get addressed as well.
Thank you, Pete. Well, as long as you have the floor, our next item is talking about SUR. Do you want to say a little bit about SUR as well?
Well, it was a massively popular program last year. This is soil quality restoration in Clive. It's a way that you can join your neighbors and your city in being a great, responsible citizen, using the water that lands on your property in a way to improve the quality of your turf and also slow it down and infiltrate it so it doesn't stress our stormwater system and carry pollutants down to Walnut Creek. Easiest way to quickly make a big difference in Clive, as we all together need to, join arms if we're going to make sure we're resilient in the future as our climate continues to change and our watershed continues to be built out.
Thank you, Pete. Do you want to talk about trees?
We're excited this year. We're excited this year that we're going to launch our first annual tree program. Trees do so many things: add value to your property, help create shade, which can help you control your energy costs around your property as well, depending on how big those trees are when they get big. They also play a big water resources role for us as well. You might recognize in your neighborhood that sort of trees are all about the same age. That means that they're maybe ending the useful end of their life, maybe losing some limbs. If you have everything dying at the same time, you end up changing the character of your property or your neighborhood very quickly. So backfilling behind them with new trees now is a good way to ensure that you've got the beautiful shade and amenity that you want on your property and also in your neighborhood. So we welcome folks participating in that cost share program this fall.
Thank you, Pete. And we, as I mentioned before, we've got an election coming up in November, and I should probably introduce Ted Weaver, council member who was here. And I don't know why you didn't get applause, Ted.
Thanks for pointing that out, John.
And then also coming up, we have the Greenbelt Music Festival. Richard, do you want to say anything about it?
Yeah, so this is something that the Horizon Center is going to be putting on, and they have partnered with the Clive Community Foundation. So $5 out of every ticket that people purchase for the 1 day or 2 day Greenbelt Music Festival will go to the Clive Community Foundation to help improve the Greenbelt. And I believe they have selected the Greenbelt Landing Project as kind of be the first recipient of that money. So get out there, have some fun, support a business, and support the Greenbelt at the same time.
You want to plug the Clive Festival as well?
Yeah, so we're very excited. We've just about got all the bands and details nailed down for the Clive Festival. We'll be announcing probably our first presenting sponsor for the overall festival, as well as the bands here in the next couple of weeks after spring break. So we're very excited with the bands that we've got locked down for this, and excited for the presenting sponsor that we're excited to tell everyone.
Good. The last item I have on the slide is the Greenbelt goats. What can you tell us about the goats?
The goats are, like Pete says, is the most popular city employee out there. People love to show up and say hi, to volunteer to help clean up their cages or to feed them some quarters to make them fat and happy. So we encourage you to get out there and see them. We expect that sometime in the next couple of weeks, we'll have some of the first babies for the year. So that's always very, very popular. And once again, they'll be out in the Greenbelt all summer long, and a few of them will make their presence known at all of our kind of festivals like Clive Festival, Food Truck Friday, and anything else we can take them to, because they're very, very popular.
Thank you. Indeed, they are. So that is the last of the slides. I'll finish with a visual here of some of the things we've done in the past year. But what questions do you have? And again, obviously, I brought our experts with us to answer those hard ones. Questions about anything about the city of Clive? Otherwise, Emily, do you have more? Yes, Stephanie.
So I have talked to some of our friendly city staff before about flood from property buyout. Cleaning services, of course, we're into feeding people, education and health. And one of the things we like to see in our community is some allotment gardening, and I think that that's something that you guys are considering on some of that flood from properties. So I don't know if you can talk about that or say anything about that.
Our city manager, Matt McClure.
Yeah, no, happy to. One thing that we're looking at with our flood prone property buyout area is most of that space is going to be green space for the neighborhood. And one thing that staff is working on, and it's also a priority in the council's strategic plan, is identify kind of a temporary use for that green space for that interim period. Why we, this is for how that program is working, we'll have to get to a certain point of enough properties acquired. Again, it's a voluntary program with those property owners where something more significant could happen. But in that interim period, I know Richard and his team are looking at ways that we can activate that into park space. Maybe community gardens are a part of that as well that we could talk about. That's something that we're definitely looking at in the next 12 months to how do we activate that green space that is open, especially along 78th Street if you've driven along that North University Boulevard. So that's definitely something we're thinking about.
At least I would like to be included in talks on that.
Yep, for sure.
Thank you. Great question. Other questions? Yes.
I know we're talking about implementing the first tree program. What about assistance with removal of all the ash borer trees that have died all over the Clive community?
Good question. Richard?
The city does not have a specific program, nor have we discussed a program for assistance on removals. That is up to a private property owner. What we have done, I can tell you on the city side, is an extensive amount of removals along public streets. And we did that actually a few years ago. And then within the Clive Greenbelt, we have a great bit of that. So pretty much all of our resources on those removals have gone towards the tree canopy that the city manages. But we do not have anything specific for private property. But I would encourage folks to make sure they're keeping an eye on those ash trees. You know, we've been trying to do some experiments with a few trees of actually doing some treatment to see how long they last. It's kind of hit or miss of whether that is effective or not. But what I would also say is part of the reason that we're also looking at the tree program is to help reforest the city as well, knowing that a number of those trees have been taken down over the last number of years. But that's where we're at this point.
Other questions? Otherwise, back to you, Emily.